Afternoon, guys. Beauty, there we are. That picture was northern Kansas in late January. It's me in the blue and a great guy I met, Chad Simmerlink. There, what else to do when it's minus 15, 20 degrees Celsius? Get the shovel and go and look for some worms. So we, had a great time. So yeah, for me, 2020 scholar from New South Wales, Cootamundra's home in the south. Big thanks to the New South Wales DPI for sponsoring my scholarship, and a big thanks to Nuffield Australia. And just thanks so much for the absolute privilege of being a Nuffield scholar. It's been an awesome 4 years since our award ceremony in 2019. So a little about me. Yeah, that's Soph back there. That's a picture of Emily and I and Soph in Queenstown, New Zealand earlier this year. So we live on my parents' sheep property at Coota, where Dad runs a composite sheep stud on 460 hectares there. Emily and I have started our own business this year, a mentoring business where we work with mentoring other farmers how to work with natural intelligence farming, which is something we came across in our scholarship and something you'll hear more about this afternoon. And I also just started another part-time job managing a cattle property on the other side of town, so it's going well so far. So my study topic, finding harmony through regenerating people, place and profit, is really looking at the transition of farming systems. And for me, it was talking to livestock and cropping farmers about how they manage that transition, how they manage changing inputs, how they manage changing themselves, and then maybe other changes on farm that they saw. Farmer examples. I just wanted to talk to farmers who were doing these things or in that process. I wasn't really focused on research organisations. It was just more in the paddock. So for me, it's kind of my take on the triple bottom line approach. We've all heard a lot, especially the last couple of days, let alone the last few years, about social, environmental and financial factors. So the people, place and profit is just my take on that. It's a bit simpler, 3 Ps. I like the sound of it. When I'll be talking about people, I think that's pretty obvious. And when I talk about place, that talks about all things like soil health, crop health, livestock health, things like that. And the profit is more the number side of the business, obviously. So that was my focus. This was where I travelled on my personal travel. Like I said, got back to the US in January and February this year. Got to a No-Till on the Plains conference in Wichita, Kansas. Another Regen Organic Summit in Lincoln, Nebraska, which was unreal, and a heap of travel throughout the Midwest, as you can see. Then New Zealand in April, after the triennial, plenty of you were there. And then we did our own travel down the Canterbury and into the Otago region to find some sheep farmers, which was great. And then also Emily and Soph and I spent 10 weeks on the road almost 12 months ago, sort of October, November last year, where we what did I do? Quit my job, hired a caravan and drove to Western Australia basically, which was so much fun. We visited Andrew Amari at Esperance, some other good friends, Roger House at Kojonup, and then ended up spending 5 weeks with Diane and Haggerty at Mollaran in, I guess you call it Northern Grain Belt in WA. So yeah, that was my personal travel, and just had an absolute ball. So this is my key message. I reckon you should be getting the hang of it after today's presentations. And I'll show you that slide again later. Just for me, it really wasn't what I was thinking when I started, but just overwhelmingly, everything just comes back to the people in every sense for me, and that was that was a big learning, and it's really changed my life in the last 12 months in a big way. So yeah, it's good to put some pictures of the people up there that have we've met along the way. Like the first picture there, that's looking for more worms somewhere else in Kansas in the snow, and there was a video of that guy Michael Thompson, and he was saying, ever in your life did you think you'd be in Kansas in the middle of winter digging a something hole? So yeah, no, the answer's no. So I'm just going to run through a couple of awesome examples of some of the people and farms I met over this time. I didn't get to the UK, visited in spirit. The UK came to me. I met Tim at a Vic No-Till conference in New South Wales this year, actually, where he was speaking. So Tim's transition in his business he manages, he runs a 300 hectare farm in Staffordshire in the UK. And the really interesting thing for me was that he approached it from his own battle with mental health. That was for him the real trigger in starting change in his business. And what that was he and his wife were committed to looking for a treatment for his depression that didn't involve putting drugs in his body. So they found a guy that could help with nutrition. And so he took hair samples, fingernail samples, blood tests, all these things. And they figured out Tim was deficient in a couple of certain nutrients. So they set him off on supplemented him with these things, and it didn't happen overnight, but it cured his depression, this approach to nutrition. So yeah, then he had this absolute light bulb moment of thinking, well, if that approach worked for me, could it work for my business? Could it work for the farm? And off he went. So it's probably a 15-year process, this transition of, say, Fritz, you might have more than 10 years work, mate. But of slowly transitioning his inputs, and he started, and Tim will say his profit was his number one focus the whole time. So the numbers had to stack up. He started reducing his nitrogen budget to pay for microbes that he put on the seed, things like this, and didn't see any reduction in yield. So he just kept going with it. And he hasn't used any phosphorus or potassium fertiliser for over 10 years now. No insecticides for 7 years, no fungicides. It's just all been a slow process, one at a time, but it's worked for him and stacked up financially. So he's been able to keep going with it. So yeah, as you can see there, improvements in soil health, improvements in crop health, and it's change to managing the crops and soils with nutrition is more of a preventative style of management. So then coming to the numbers, it's just had a huge effect on the bottom line. Like it was in English pounds, it was 233 pounds a hectare savings in his cropping program. So 450 Aussie dollars. Like I know a lot of guys in Australia that could probably grow a couple of crops on 450 bucks a hectare. Like that's just massive, I think. So Tim was a great example for me. So tying that all together, like it started with the people, then he saw this awesome change in the farm, like in the paddock, and then in the numbers also. But yeah, for me, tying it back to the people was just amazing. Next up, Diane and Haggerty, local legends from WA. We were just so lucky to spend time with them. We'd heard a lot about them from the east, but man, being a bloke, I had to see it for myself. It's great to have that opportunity. For them, their journey really started, I think, when they started looking at themselves harder, and they work with what they call natural intelligence farming, which is really a process of looking within. From what I've come to learn, calming your head and getting into your heart. That's been a big part to try and reconnect with yourself, really, to try and understand yourself so that you can understand what's going on outside you. Has been their approach and seems to be really working well for them. So similar to Tim, transition their input slowly away from more synthetic products to nearly a fully biological program now. So in the picture there, they're where they make some compost. Johnson Sioux bioreactors. It's a static pile. It's a fungal-based compost that forms the basis of their liquid fertiliser at sowing. So yeah, down the furrow at sowing, the Johnson Sioux compost. They use things like fulvic and humic acid, fish products, kelp. What else? Bit of silica, things like that. So it's again slow process, but really working for them. They're seeing so much life come back to their farm. A lot of it, salt affected country. But what they're seeing is they've started to stimulate that soil biology near the surface through some of these products, and that seems to be able to got more life there in the soil. So more sort of that rainwater or fresh water can be held in the surface, and seems to keep that salt water down below. So they're seeing crops get better and better year on year on this traditionally salt affected country. So I think, for me, that just shows the power of biology. Again, similar to Tim, it's much lower cost of production than the synthetic inputs how they were farming beforehand, which is enabled them to increase their profitability. It's enabled them to expand their business. Like that's how it's all working for them. So again, pulling that all together for me, pretty clear example. It just comes back to the people, and for them, their I guess personal development or that work on self has just been absolutely enormous for them. Over the ditch, Hamish and Amy Bielski in the southern Otago region were some beautiful people that we got the chance to meet. Sheep farmers like us at home. They're running 260 hectares, purely grazing with a little bit of supplementary cropping in the winter, a bit of kale. But for them, their change started. They were sort of unhappy with the amount of chemical and fertiliser they were using to grow grass for the sheep, and really the cost that was having on the business. So they started, the first change they made was to their grazing management. They employed a grazing coach, and they went from having 10 different mobs of sheep back to 2. So they consolidated numbers. They had 2 mobs of sheep, and Hamish was moving those sheep up to 4 times a day. So it was a lot of electric fence, a lot of moving fence, and Hamish will tell you, it was awesome for the grass. Like, we're growing more grass with less fertiliser just from the way we're moving the animals. But it just really took away or adversely affected from the people side of the business, because Amy works full-time off farm. So Hamish had to get the kids to and from school, all those sort of things. He just couldn't be as an effective family member, really. So they kept changing and kept tweaking that grazing approach, and now he's just relaxed that a bit. They move the sheep every sort of 1 to 2 days. Still growing great amounts of grass. Still, much more cost effectively than beforehand. The animal health's great with the sheep moving often. Their drench costs are down 50%. These guys had a really interesting, I should mention on the profit section there, they had a good comparison to some neighbours in a local farm group about so those little FWE stands for farm working expenses, which is just the whole lot combination of overheads and your direct costs, and GFI is gross farm income. So they compared with a neighbour who hadn't made similar changes to what they had. The neighbour had a higher gross farm income and also higher farm working expenses. He was at 55% of his gross farm income. But boiling it down to earnings before interest and tax on a hectare basis. So on a hectare basis, these guys actually compared favourably, which that was a big learning for me, or just that the notion that it is possible. Like, just because they may be lower input or lower cost doesn't necessarily mean they're making less money. They're less profitable. So that was, for me, that was an awesome demonstration that basically you just got to find what works for you and your business. And again, it just came back to the people. If they hadn't stepped out and started making decisions for themselves, then they probably wouldn't still be farming, is what Hamish would say. So there it is again. Just take a picture of that. I think it's 6 words. Everything comes back to the people, and I think the beauty in that is that it can mean different things to different people. But the big thing is what are the new possibilities when we start changing our thinking and changing our language? We start changing the way we look at ourselves. And yeah, like I said, for me, that's been a big change, looking at myself in the mirror a bit closer. So yeah, I'll just start a few sort of closing remarks or things to leave you with. Is yeah, I really encourage you to get curious about what you're doing, and just like Soph there with a handful of worms. Yeah, I don't know. Try and find that childlike passion within yourself that maybe sometimes we put it to the side, but it's just questioning everything that leads into this next point. And that's not in a cynical way either. It's just in a way of discovery and learning new things. It's yeah, certainly helped me. Invest in yourself. Again, I think can be different for everyone. There's no one approach. It's just you got to keep working on yourself and keep finding what's right for you. Big takeaway for me was that all those 3 areas, people, place and profit, are all just so inextricably linked. Like writing my report, it was impossible to separate them out and like identify them, assess them individually. It just had to be done as a collective, I guess, and that's probably where the power is in what these guys were doing in their operations. They'd really found that balance there. And yeah, context is key. That's a big one. It's just not doing what the neighbours are doing because it's working for them. Like I can guarantee it probably won't work for you in the same way. I think we've heard maybe Andrew and a few others mention today, like earning the right to change or earning the right to drop those inputs. Understanding that it's a process and these things can, 10 or 20 years to transition a business is potentially what you're looking at. Yeah, and just change slow, stay profitable throughout. That is possible. Or maybe be cautious of getting caught in ideologies and sort of going cold turkey, flipping your business on its head. It might take a long time to recover. And support, just like what I've sort of been lucky to have over the last 4 years. Support through a transition, absolutely paramount. Have good people around you. And yeah, learning to ask the right questions. That's yeah, I think I'm still working on that one. But yeah, it just leaves my last slide to finish on. And yeah, the big learning for me is that yeah, anything's possible when operating from your heart. So thank you guys.